All right, we're live.
Hi there, and welcome to Peppers and Flowers, where sales and marketing doesn't make sense. Please join us for the conversation.
All right, here we go again. So sales is pretty funny. I think we should talk about that again because I think sales are one of those things that are just so like it can be a bitch sometimes. Like you always feel like you know something, you know enough, and then you get on that one phone call, and then it kind of like challenges your skills, and you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I say that? I thought I had the skills in place. And I think probably the most part where those issues happen, I'll guarantee there's some people who always are pretty good at it, but I think it's always between the transition from like the informative part of the sales call to the, okay, now let's take action on it and we're going to charge a card or we're going to sign the document. We're going to like move forward, get this going. And even, I mean, there's been sales calls I've listened to that, you know, the sales reps and the client are, they seem like they would make a great team. They seem really well, the client seems really well qualified, really vetted, and the provider seems like he'd be a good provider. So there's like a good mutual relationship. But then once it transitions or lack of to the like closing process of that call, it like falls out and it falls short and the momentum and the excitement's not there, you know? And I was
Yeah,
wondering, like, maybe it's, sometimes I think like, man, it can be awkward to be like, oh, right, that's going to be $5,000. Aren't you excited? And you're like, yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. But I think it might have to do with the current mindset that the salesperson's in.
yeah,
It could be they're thinking the process like ends at the close of the deal and they're not thinking beyond that. Like they're just thinking like, okay, I'm almost at the finish line. I just got to sprint really hard and I'll make it
right.
on top. And they're not
Yeah,
thinking, okay, well, once they collect payment, like now we have to like take care of them. Or maybe that's the end of the salesperson process. So they just think, man, I'm almost there. If I could just get them to close,
yeah,
I'm done. Like,
right.
and I hand them off to like onboarding people or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly for some organizations who have different departments, it's like, all right, great, we closed the deal. Let's hand them over to customer service or to a follow-up team, and they'll take care of the customer, like an account management team maybe, and they'll handle them for from this point forward. And so then the buck's passed on and you're good to go. However, in some cases, and in a lot of cases, actually, the sales job just begins at when the deal's signed. Because it's kind of like when you propose to somebody, and the guy proposes to the girl, and she says yes. Well, hey, that's a great yes, and that's a great beginning, but guess what? The marriage is just starting. Can you imagine if couples, as soon as they exchange vows and all that, and they're just getting off the ground, that they stopped taking care of each other? I mean, it'd be a miserable thing. And so I see it, I make that analogy because I am married, been happily married for almost 11 years now. And during the course of our marriage, it took it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of gift giving, a lot of talks, a lot of work together, and striving together to make things work. And I don't want to say sales exactly mirrors relationships like that, but in some ways it does. Is that when you get a signed contract, I mean, that's the relationship is just starting. So for maybe novices in the sales profession, they think, wow, I just got a deal, and they think they're done. Well, let's have a longer term perspective of it and say, no, it's just beginning, and greater things are yet to come, because in that relationship building, there's a lot of services being done, a lot of education being done, a lot of maybe some upsells and side sells along the way to get more more products to the customer.
Yeah.
But I mean, that comes with the territory, and that's great. It's gravy for you as a sales professional. But yeah, we have to be very clear that winning the deal or getting a signed agreement is just the beginning.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I feel like sometimes I wonder if, so there's a difference, obviously. Like I've been in some situations where, um, okay, so the simple sales process, right, would be like you call upon leads that you have, you try to vet them a bit, and then you get them as nurtured as possible. So then you vet them as well, and you put them on a appointment, and then you send them to a closer, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty straightforward process, and it works pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's heavily reliant on the setter to make sure they're in the right mindset before they get on the closer, because closers are only as good as their setters.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I
so
love that.
right. So there's that. Like you have to do really, if you're doing, and for the most part, I mean, let's be real. It's pretty much a hard close at that point,
Mm-hmm.
because what they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is initial contact with one phone call, maybe a couple follow-ups between for both setter and closer, but pretty much
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2 calls, and then they set an appointment, and then they get on the call with a closer. It's right mindset. You bet at the end of that call with a closer, he's going to be
Mm-hmm.
pushing to get that sale and charge the card. Like pretty much doing some hard sales there, which there's nothing wrong
Mm-hmm.
with that. It works really well for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But um, what I was thinking was sometimes sales are such a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's such a process, and once you close those deals, and they just seem like, oh man, that was really like a lot of work. you know
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I felt uncomfortable or something, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you start servicing them, and you're in the right mindset to know that, okay, I got to service them, and you do, and they're very happy, and they become like a loyal customer. When you go back to them and say, hey, you know what, this would really help you, let's talk about this product or that, um take note next time, because you'll see how much like open they are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how much, and it doesn't even turn into a sales call, really. It's kind of just like, um you really become a docent, sort of, in a
Mm-hmm.
regard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you really do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I'm stumbling a bit because there's a lot going on in my head right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say, think of it this way: most businesses, salespeople,
Mm-hmm.
their sales process is literally like this. And I think I told you this yesterday. They literally are
Uh-huh.
like, it's like the same, it's the equivalent of them going around at a mall and then trying to make out with every person that walks by them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you think that would work out for you? You probably have the cops there in a moment, be like, who the heck is this guy trying to, like, you know,
Yeah.
because they don't know anything. They don't know anything about you.
Right. Right.
That's like the psychology of what most business sales teams are doing. They're just like
Mm-hmm.
calling
Mm-hmm.
people up and going, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" And I mean, again, it's not like I'm trying to complain that's a problem,
Yeah.
but
Right.
that's what it's
Right.
like.
Yeah. I think people who kind of get into sales at a young age, or maybe just kind of jump at these sales jobs because of the great bonuses and commission payouts and things like that. Um, I mean, you kind of get caught up in that role, and all of a sudden you're trying to make it work out. But what happens a lot of times is you tend to go on the side of maybe the easy road, or the least resisted road or whatnot. Like, they talk about, you could choose the highway, or the way that might take a little bit more integrity or ethics, and then, or just kind of the easy way of just like, well, I'm gonna kind of throw my integrity out the door, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get the sale. And so what happens oftentimes is a profession or a career turns into just a fun game, and it might work for a little while. You're out there, you kind of, you put yourself out, and you in a sense lose that professional side of yourself, and you try to get too friendly with people too soon, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what am I doing? And it's like, you're kind of compromising even a professional way of working. And what happens is you might bring on a few quick customers because of the way I heard it once. There was a rep told me, I was going on training once at a company, a fairly large kind of a company that they do like that multi-level marketing and all that, but they're very efficient and effective what they do.
Yeah.
And the guy was walking me down the halls, and I was following him around. He was showing me what to do, and then all of a sudden he turns to me. He goes, "Well, James, the one thing we don't do is we don't flirt." And I was like, "Okay." And not that I was out there to flirt anyways, but he goes, we learned 5 principles at our company, and here are the 5 principles, and the 5th one is you don't flirt to get the deal.
What do you mean? What do you mean by? Did he give you an example? I'm like curious to know.
Well, just flirting, like, say for example, you're knocking on doors, and oftentimes you're talking to front desk receptionists, right? And if you're a guy, or even if you're a girl, and say you're talking to a male secretary, you can get friendly, like, hey, how you doing? And here's my business card, and tell me, who are you and what do you
I don't know,
do? And
James. It sounded like a pickup line, right?
yeah, I know. I
Anyway.
know. It's like, so, you're not there to, it's okay, I think, professionally to ask how you're doing, because it's just a common courtesy. But if you're like, hey, how you doing? It's like, hey, we're not here to flirt and, pick people up. We're here to close a deal and to be professional. There's a fine line there. And even like in the shaking of a hand, you could do it in a very professional way or in a very suggestive way, right? And
Like giving a little
so,
tickle on the palm.
yeah, I know. I know. I mean, there's all these things, so it's like, as long as our mind is in the right place, we're not going to do those things. We might make a couple of slips here and there, but we're not intentionally trying to do it. And so you could have a long, career in sales and be very successful. But I mean, if you go down that slippery road of like, well, no, I'm going to just flirt, do whatever it takes to get the deal. Yeah, it could be a very, dark place to be in. Right. So yeah, I mean, I would
guess.
definitely caution people. Yeah.
I'm not certain. I'm not sure about that. I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, we're not trying to trying to pick up someone for sure. But flirting suggestive. It's like it's a very subjective thing. So you could still be professional, and then someone's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting hit on, but you're like, no, I'm not. It's totally
Right.
perceptive, I think, too. So
Yeah.
like the fine line for sure is professionalism should be just kind of like a foundational thing that you have.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't swear. It doesn't mean you can't do certain things, but there's a sort of like feel, what I'm saying? There's a sort of feel to professionalism. It's like you're not talking about personal stuff per se. I mean, sometimes maybe if you have a close thing with a client, they get to know you, and maybe it's appropriate, sure. But there's sort of a foundational line to that. And I think what's kind of what's probably more important, just to me, in my opinion, that I feel is like, it's more about the flow of information and the structure of the sales call, which in turn, if you know what you're doing, the professional salesperson it's part of their DNA.
Right.
It's not anything they have to think about,
Yeah, absolutely.
because there are companies that do really well with flirtatious sales staff. And I mean, like, not like sexual necessarily, but I mean like joking and that sort of thing. A little bit flirtatious for sure. And I believe I don't know much about their company, but I believe they're doing quite well. At least they're doing well enough to like staff a sales team that are full time, I believe. And there are those, like, I don't know the name, so I'm not going to quote anything, but the pen company. Have you ever gotten that call?
The pen company?
There's a pen company that every time you start a business or you Okay, it's not really a business sometimes. If you start a business and you put yourself online, right? Like Google My Business, or you put yourself on Yelp or whatever, or you just basically put your information out there as a business, individual, whatever you're trying to do, social media, you always start getting phone calls by people trying to like sell you something because your information is now public. So when I started my first business before the stuff I'm doing now, I started getting calls from everyone about like, hey, you want some business insurance? Give us a call. You want this? You want that? Because they know I was a new business that popped up. And the pen company, they're not really called the pen company, but this pen company would call you and they're trying to sell you bulk pens with your business name on it. Right?
Right.
So I got this phone call. I'm going to kind of paraphrase because I don't really remember how the whole thing went, but it was like a couple years ago. But I got this phone call and he goes, hey, listen, don't hang up. We'll just call him James. Hey, my name's James. I'll tell you what, let me tell you a joke. If you laugh, let me explain what I do. And if you don't, then you can hang up. Does that sound fair? And in my head, I was like, what the heck? Like, sure. Right? He go, great.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what the joke was, but he goes, why did the chicken cross the road? And he goes, I don't know why. And he's like, to get to the other side. And I'm like, haha, that is funny. Kind of annoyed, I guess, too. And then he started going, yeah, cool, man. Right. And then just like this old 70s style, like super overblown soap, soap opera type thing. Just kind of annoying, honestly. And then he goes, yeah, and then we get to the point where it's about pens. Pens with your business name on it. And it was kind of flirtatious, but it's some dude, And like,
Mhm.
and I remember him saying, okay, cool. That, we'll get 500 pens for like $350. I was like, no, I don't want them. He's like, all right, cool. Hey, look. If we're gonna do 500 pens for $250, okay, let's just get this going. Let's do it. All right, let's do it. And then I'm like, okay, no. All right, fine. 500 pens for 70. I can do for 75. All right, let's get it done. It was truly like that.
The next winner is by Arnie, and she wrote.
Daniel, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I just thought it dropped off there. Yeah, I'm listening. This is great.
Yeah, so it was just like this weird thing. It's a weird experience. And to myself, I thought, man, these guys get business. They do.
Yeah.
But it was such an outrageous sales idea. I can't imagine. Well, here's the thing. There's two sides. I can't imagine if they go to other sales organizations that maybe take sales a bit more seriously and go, oh, heck no way. Or maybe the salesperson is just molding into what the job's requiring them to do, and they're just good enough to like take on that character. I don't know, but it was outrageous. I mean,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I totally agree with you that like, being creative is like, a weapon in your arsenal of things, or arrow in your quiver of sales, because, creativity is awesome. I mean, everyone appreciates it. And even if you are creative like that to a prospect, they actually appreciate that. They go, wow, this guy is like, kind of making my day, making it funny and creative. And people respond in kind, and they'll say, yeah, I'd love to buy 500 pens for whatever,
yeah,
because it's like, honestly, that person went out of the way and put some thought into it. And two, people know in general, like that, in sales you get a lot of no's, and like 25 no's to a yes sometimes. And it's like, so they understand, like, man, this guy probably got a lot of no's, and they're coming up with this new concept, trying to win me over. I'll give it a shot. Not that you're trying to always sympathy close people, but you're coming across being genuine. Hey, I'm being creative, trying something different. Give me a shot. Basically give me some time, and people like that. I mean, and I'm all for that. Like, in jokes, man, if you can tell some good jokes and they're original, that goes a long ways. I mean, people like jokes. I mean, who doesn't like to go to a comedy club or to listen to some comedians? It's like,
Yeah.
people love laughing.
The only
Uh,
thing, see, what's cool, James, is you and I have different like sales ideas and like how
mhm,
we do our sales and stuff. So I think it gives our listeners kind of like a cool perspective on
mhm,
different sides of a spectrum.
mhm,
Because in my opinion, I feel like the comedy's funny when you go to comedy clubs
mhm.
because you're anticipating some highly paid person to make you laugh if you're going to like a celebrity, that type of thing. But
Mhm.
it's and if you do comedy in a place that's comedy's not really expected, it could, if you could throw people off sometimes.
Yeah, it's got to be within, with that, that kind of common sense, or common courtesy. You're not, if you're going in there just like trying to make someone laugh in a way that's the whole point of why you're there, then you'll just be a comedian and they won't buy anything from you,
Yeah, but
So,
I mean, joking around can be applicable at certain situations. I agree. And
right.
and like my my style that fits well for me is kind of like I just try to be myself
Hmm.
purely because when the sale's over, if I'm their account manager, I'm going to be dealing with them. So I don't want to have to carry this facade of um very stern salesperson because I'm actually not. And then I transition to like, Daniel, and I'm just Daniel. And they're like, well,
Yeah,
that's a change.
yeah, yeah.
If I could just keep the same control, get down to business, be serious, and be like, hey, it's going to be this much, charge the card, close the
Hmm.
deal, make it happen,
Yeah,
get them
right.
onboarded. That's still there,
Hmm.
but I'm still my consistent self.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm
You
trying to
can't try to
represent
fake
myself.
that.
So when we start working together, it's like they actually know who I am.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think so. I mean, for me, I always put my customers first, and look out for their best interests. So if they're, having to choose between multiple things, I always try to give them the different options in the best light, and let them decide, and not try to force them in any one way or the other. And give them as much knowledge and education as possible on the different choices, because that's my job, is to make things pretty plain and simple, and and not trying to sugarcoat things or make it seem any better than it really is. And then if I could do my part to answer questions as thorough as possible, that's what I try to do. That way they know that I'm an open book, and from the very beginning they kind of like what you're saying, you kind of get the same thing a month from now, 3 6 months from now, or a year from now, and you're going to have that same consistent service down the road. So yeah, it's the same. That's my same philosophy too, is just be yourself. And when it comes time to talking to the customer in the future, you're always going to be that same person. So customers like stability, and they like consistency. If they, every time they talk to you, you're changing or a different person, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't, that's not what I thought I was getting. Or and they think that you're kind of like just trying to close a deal to either fulfill a quota, or make some personal goals or whatnot. So it's like they have to feel like they're being taken care of, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the kissing strangers in public thing. Like
Hmm.
it's somewhat along the same line. I mean, you can easily push someone to make that decision, but you've thinned them out so much that they're kind of a high risk client now because they may or may not know fully what they signed up for. They might come back and go, I don't even know what happened. I just was like in the moment and just was like, this is, yeah, let's do it, but it could have been purely off a moment of decision. Not necessarily like coherentness of, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Right.
And then you really got to make sure that you're servicing them like even more.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to be like, it's hard to be so I would say sometimes it's hard to be consistent with like who you want to work with and stuff, because if someone comes to you and goes, hey, I need a new website, you know, and you go, okay, that's going to be like a couple $1,000s, and they go, great, let's do it, and you're like, wait a second, that was too quick, do you even understand what's going to happen? It's hard to kind of backtrack on that and not get the deal and just close the deal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like even
So
for my,
yeah,
yeah,
you're like, oh, well, really, I need to make sure, like, okay, you know, but again, sometimes I encourage to avoid questions or set your sales call up to avoid questions, because once you start getting into questions, it becomes a black hole. They start asking random things. They don't even know what questions to ask. They're just asking, because what they're looking for is like an aha moment where you go, yeah, you know, every single client we worked with are now multi-billionaires, and you're like, oh, perfect. Okay, that's what I was looking for. They don't know what they were looking for. And so if you can try to distinguish, I would say, a certain level of questions so you don't get in that hole, and save the questions for when you are onboarding them, because that's where most questions will come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's another thing that you can do to kind of prevent people from just like over exhausting themselves. And then when you get to onboarding, there's less confusion, and then you can go, okay, now let's talk about, I have questions, what about this, how about that? It's a little more pure and organic that way, because
Absolutely.
I have someone I'm trying to do business with now, and it's been emails back and forth of just tons of questions, random questions, like questions that I don't even think she knows what she's talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
it was like one of them was, oh, we have like a web builder, you know, like anyone else has a web builder. It's like Squarespace or Shopify, you know, those are web builders. And so when you join Shopify, for an example, or any type of web building system that you do yourself, you're pretty much on their servers. And then whether you share IP addresses or there's a pool, you know, there's all this extra stuff, but basically you sign up, you have your own website, it works perfectly fine. And that's pretty much like 99% of everyone that you sign up to build a website on has their own servers. It works kind of the same way, very similar. And she's asking me like things like, oh, do we share IP addresses with other customers? How many customers are sharing the same IP address? And all this stuff that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got myself in the black hole of questions. Because now you can't necessarily go to her and say, look, girl, these questions are crazy. They don't even mean anything. Like you can't really, you know, there's this sensitivity. You have to be careful, because if you start saying these questions are dumb, it's going to be like,
Yeah.
well, they're my questions. They're not dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's yeah, questions are like that, you know. I mean, they show a little vulnerability. You know, by saying, but even asking a question, it kind of makes you vulnerable. It's like, oh, you don't know that. It's like, but so there's some bravery that takes place when people ask questions, but at the same time, you know, not doesn't mean that, you know, they say in school though that no, there's no bad question, right? You know, it's like there's no such thing as a bad question.
They want you to believe that.
I know. So ultimately, it's like this: if that person really has a question and that's on their mind, what we need to do, you know, if we understand that it's not that big of a question, is just go, look, you know, here's really what's important, and then really like speak in a way that doesn't condescend necessarily, but in a way that teaches, you know, because you know, we all have teaching moments, right? I mean, I'm the guy that asks questions probably the most in meetings. Sometimes I feel like I always have another question. The meeting's already over, you know, and sometimes I hesitate, but then I go, well, you know, I have a question though. I need to ask it. So, but then I know those moments where people talk to me in a different tone, and it's like they don't say that question's dumb, but they talk to me like, hey, you know, you need to know this, you know. And it's like, you know, whether it's a question that you should have asked, you know, years before you got into that position, you know, or something that was already mentioned in the meeting and yet you still asked it, or just a question that's not really relevant to what you need to know to move forward. And you know, there's different scenarios why a question may be not a good question, but yeah, man, it's the school of hard knocks. You know, you learn by asking and realizing that maybe I shouldn't ask that, or maybe that wasn't appropriate, or maybe I'm wasting someone's time. You know, because that happens to me a lot too. Is like, you know, people ask questions and I feel like, man, they've asked that before or whatnot. And but you know, repetition is sometimes good too, to repeat yourself and say things over and over again until it's really understood. But yeah, you're right. When it's a customer bringing that to you, you know, it's real sensitive. We want to respect our customers. So yeah, but I mean, you know, um, honestly, like with the field that you know, you're in with online marketing, it's a high level place. You know, there's a lot of people in that space, but it's still a high level place where there's a lot of details to it. And so um, you know, yeah, I mean, I could see why there's a lot of questions out there, you know. When we say things like Facebook ads or social media marketing, it's like, it's to us it's like totally understood, but for somebody else it's like, wait, what does that really mean, and how do those ads appear? And so so I mean, it's kind of that kind of a mix of things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a process. I think partially just sometimes I feel like people are just looking for quick money. They think sales is the closest thing. Well, I mean, it is. It's the closest thing. It's the main attributing factor to why there's millionaires in the world. A huge percentage of millionaires struck big before they became millionaires in sales. They built their sales skills out. And if you can get, it's probably one of the most important things you can learn as a business owner. Besides a slew of other things, of course, but I would say forefront would be sales. Mm-hmm. But I would say, you know, consider that there's things that we just have to not be affected by. Sometimes not caring can help you. Okay, so you care about your customers, obviously. That's hands down for sure, right? And probably most importantly, before your customers, you care more about your internal staff or contractors or whoever you're working with first, because if you don't have a good team or people rely on you like that, or you can't service your customers as well. But think of it more of a process, right? I try to think, okay, I try to convince people to let them know, like, no, we really can help you. This is gonna be great, that sort of thing. But I try not to close deals off convincing people. I kind of take the Gary V philosophy on it, because if you hit the right person, which there are tons of them, the deals kind of close themselves, and those end up being like really good relationships. And the ones that I find that I forcefully like push really hard on, I keep convincing them, and sometimes over just really small deals. You know, there's any size deals worth pursuing. I hate when some sales professionals are like, it's not worth my time. And it's like, man, any deal you can get for a customer is worth your time.
Yeah.
You know, think of a goal you're trying to get. Like, I want to hit 1 million in 2 years. Well, that person that you're trying to close and put a lot of time in for $20, that's $20 closer to your goal.
Absolutely, it is. It is like that. I mean, and you never know. I mean, your $20 customer today, maybe your $20 million customer tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, but it's a full process. It's like you can close people, okay, but now we have to make sure we can service and onboard them, and do we have everything we need to like keep that relationship on a good note? I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but my advice, I'd say, is, first of all, you know, the best thing would be like, don't worry about closing deals. Worry more about trying to get to understand the company and them and that sort of thing, because a lot of that's an advantage that you'll have over most other sales reps, is like they don't really typically do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, people call me all the time trying to sell me something, and they're focusing too much on products and their service. They're not focusing on the information I would give them to even let them know if, in fact, yes, this would help me, or no, it would not. It's always product or service oriented. I've been having great closing results lately because I've been focusing more on, I don't offer any solutions until I feel like I understand where you're at with your business. And that's like a foundational aspect. That's a challenge. Even like what they're doing really well at is super helpful. And then understanding like their goals and stuff gives me like a really comprehensive bird's eye view, knowing exactly where the company's at and what I can do to help them. So then I'm really truly I'm able to offer them a non-cookie cutter solution and go, based on what you said, you know, maybe I really think this would work for you. Or, you know, based on what you said, I don't think there's anything I have to help except, you know, I would recommend maybe finding someone that does this or that. That would be your best option. And that goes a long way, because we've talked about it before, but it's almost like servicing your customers without them realizing it's a sales call, because then they get it's controlled. There's sales systems behind it, of course, but it's more about, we're already working together. And at the end of it, if their only objection, which normally it is, yeah, it's just a little expensive, I've done my sales process correctly, because there's no other objections. There's no like, well, what about results? Can you send me case studies? Can you do this? That's going down that rabbit hole. So it's pretty satisfying for me, because my main goal in every sales call I do is, I need to understand your business first, at least to a certain level, not all the details, because that could take weeks, you know, but that's the main goal I come up with. And then I start going, okay, let's move you along, and we'll get to the solution part. And then it's this much. And most of the time, I'd say like 95% of the time, the only questions they really ever have are basically pricing and like deliverables of the service. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's where the customer wants, you know, we want the customer to be there, because, you know, pricing is kind of black and white. You could talk about it. You could, you know, raise the price, lower the price, throw in promotions. That's kind of the fun part, where you kind of go over those details. And then the deliverables, that's also a fun part, because now you get to, you know, show them all the great things you're going to do for them, and, you know, and also educate during that time as well. So, yeah, I mean, you know, is
Uh-oh.
that you?
Yeah, getting a phone call.
You're
Actually,
good to go? Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll call him back.
Okay, no worries. It's a good customer, right? With good
Yeah,
question.
it is. It is. I know. I
Yeah.
know. I think it's. I know. I'll give him a call back.
No, but I mean, you know, you raised really a good issue, because how you lead into, you know, signing up a client is very, very key, because if we don't do the heavy lifting up front, you know, asking the difficult questions, getting to know the prospect and all those things, if we don't do the heavy lifting up front, we're going to be doing a lot of backpedaling later on, and it's going to just slow things down, and not make it as enjoyable or professional. It's like, you know, can you imagine going into a prospect and learning all about, you know, what maybe you think they do, and then all of a sudden you present a solution and it's the wrong solution, so you have to kind of resell it to them in a different way. You know, it's kind of like putting that square or round peg in a square hole. You know, it's like it's the wrong fit. And you know, if we do the heavy lifting up front, you know, I actually have, like, you know, a set of questions that I have written down, and I ask those same questions to every prospect in an interview meeting with them, because I want to be consistent. I have all these questions that I've thought through long before, and I'm just going, over every prospect and asking those same questions. And so basically by doing that, I have a strategy in place to figure out who they are, what they do, maybe what their vision is for their company, and then kind of put together a real comprehensive solution. And in the end, too, I think if you do that, the heavy lifting up front, you have just a more enjoyable career, because you feel like you understand things better, things make sense more. You're also connecting with people better. You're not as fragmented. I think a lot of us, we get into sales situations. I know early in my career, it's like they threw me a phone book and a phone. It's like, here, make some calls. You're like, what do I start with? What kind of questions do I ask? Where do I, who do I call even sometimes? And so, when you take the guessing game out of things, people are less fragmented, feel more complete, and you just feel a lot better about who you are and what you're doing. So, so I would say, this whole aspect of winning the deal, or kind of making that first, deal that say it's signed, it's dated, and all that good stuff. That is just the beginning, and there's still much more to come in a customer relationship, and a lot more to look forward to. I mean, growing with the customer's business, getting referral, a lot of referral business can come out of that, and also just understanding their product better over time, and meeting their needs.
I mean, even referrals can be still hard to close sometimes.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's a lot easier to say, oh, John Doe from XYZ company referred me to you. They say you have, a need that's similar to theirs, and they'd be like, oh yeah, John, so it does help, but yeah, you still got to work. It's just like anything else,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we have to put our time in. But I like all this to say, man. I think you're right, man. You got to do the heavy lifting up front, get to know your customer. If you bypass that, it's like you're gonna be backpedaling and trying to figure things out down the road, which it takes a lot of time and energy and wasted time to do that. So put the homework up front and ask the questions. As far as that goes, is there anything else, Daniel, you see about like winning the deal, how it relates to sometimes courting somebody and not just stopping at the proposal, but going forward to, dating well, marrying well, and then living a good marriage well, I mean,
well, I don't know. I mean, I am married, but I don't know if I'm an expert to give advice out like that. The last final thoughts I'll mention for sure is it's all kind of relative in a sense. So the effort you put in will the effort you get reciprocated. And in non-romantic ways, if you're in it for the other person, or if you're in it actually for clients and you're set up and you've set yourself up or business up, whatever kind of metaphor you want to use, to be about the other person, we want to make sure the other person's in it for, in it for us as well. It kind of becomes, if a team is in it for each other, basically. So there's no like pointing fingers or anything like that. It's kind of, we're in it together sort of thing.
Right.
That's kind of just a very superficial explanation.
Yep. And that goes for, new companies starting off, seasoned companies, if you're an independent contractor or whatnot, it goes for you too, because you are, who I'm talking to right now is our audience. You are a valuable asset, I mean, to your business, to other people's businesses. If you're an employee, I mean, we have to value ourselves and take care of ourselves. And as we do that, we're going to see that, when we partner with people or serve other customers, that, I mean, they're part of the equation, but so are we, and so it's a relationship that takes, two parties to really work out. And so that I kind of like that I said that just now, because it kind of goes back to what I was sharing earlier, the sales rep who puts them out too far, maybe going, crossing boundaries to just really get a deal. man, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, sell yourself short. You have a lot to offer and bring to the table for your customer. Just stay professional, stay in that zone of being yourself, and not trying to like lose your identity to win a deal, because, in the end, you are more valuable than any deal can ever be. And so, but yeah, I mean, as we go out there and represent our companies and whatnot, I mean, we will win customers and we will be successful. We just have to put ourselves in the right mindset, in the shoes to win the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's all I got to add. And I like, because you're right, it's the customer and the company selling to the customer. It takes two parties to really work out.
Yeah, it does.
So, and that goes for partnerships too. Even within a company, if you have a business partner or an associate, or you're in a situation with very key strategic business partners in what you do, you lean on each other. But I mean, both parties have to do some work, and both parties have to lean. And so, it really is that synergy, that causes good things to happen. One person can only do so much. When you put two heads together, it's like that synergy automatically it exponentially multiplies the work that can be done. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's actually exponential. So when two people do things together, it just multiplies the results. So I mean, if you're in a business partnership or anything like that, like, just know that, man, you gotta do your part, but also lean on your business partner too to do their part, and it could really be a beautiful thing.
For sure. Well, that was a good discussion.
Absolutely, Daniel. Well, all right. So as we end here, any closing thoughts about? I guess we got the weekend coming up. We're business as usual. A lot of in the world today, a lot of stores opening up and things like that. But any other final thoughts before I close?
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, friends, now that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today at Peppers and Flowers. We look forward to joining you again next Saturday. Daniel and James signing off.